Hello everyone, this is Sumit K and welcome to today's videos on cloud migration planning. So planning is one of the most important and crucial phase in cloud migrations because during this phase you make some of the most important decisions such as which application you want to move first. This involves organizing your migration into phases starting with a pilot test in a phase 1, then you proceed to phase 2 and so on and so forth. You also need to decide which migration strategy to adopt. Will you be rehosting, refactoring, or re architecting your application? So each strategy has its own benefits and challenges. So it's very important that you choose the migration strategies that basically suits your needs. And finally, you build your target Google Cloud landing zone or cloud foundation. This is like something creating the building blocks of your foundation to ensure that your target environment is fully ready before you actually start the migration. Okay, so think about our home example, like we have discussed in our previous video. So think of it like when you're moving from one home to another, you plan basically which household item will go first, and what sensitive items that need extra care, and you basically make sure that your target home is ready or not. So this includes ensuring proper electricity, good water supply, security, and thorough cleaning in your target home. In cloud migration, this preparation ensure that your application have a secure and efficient and well organized environment before you move into, right? So if you look at here planning, I have divided planning into two parts. One is, yeah, you're seeing the on-prem planning, and the other is you're seeing the Google Cloud readiness. So here you meet all your stakeholders and you think about from your on-prem side, like which application that you want to move first, right? So after you complete the discovery and assessment phase, and set up your foundation design, and so what you're going to do, you actually start planning your migration by categorizing your workloads into the migration waves. Right, so here basically what you do, you create a catalog of workload for your application service and database that you basically want to migrate, and then you map the workloads to the infrastructure components, and then you map all your dependency, and then you will think about taking the decision of migration strategies, like you want to do with the lift and shift, rehost, replatform, or refactor. And then you can use the cloud foundational toolkit to build your foundation onto the Google Cloud. Now foundation, I talked about foundation, which is comes under Google Cloud readiness, right? So Google Cloud foundation or landing zone is something that is a basic need, right? Basic need means, like in an example of our home, migrating from one home, what you're gonna need to survive on your target home. You're gonna need electricity, you need a basic foundations, you need water supply. All these basic needs are necessary before you actually migrate or start living there. Similarly, in the cloud, landing zone, which is also called a cloud foundation, is a modular and scalable configuration that enables all the organizations to adopt Google Cloud for their business need. Now, landing zone is often a prerequisite to deploying enterprise workloads in a cloud environment and ensure that you have a strong and reliable framework for building and operating your application and service in any cloud environment. Now, uh, what happen if you do not have this landing zone or foundation is not ready? Okay, so let's understand this problem without a landing zone. So when business starts migrate to the cloud, they face various challenges such as, a lack of centralized governance, security issues, consistencies, and most important, this networking things. So these issues can result in a operational inefficiencies and increase the security risk, and also the compliance gaps, right? So every cloud offers and recommends a landing zone to be created first before we start the business journey in a full fledged. To ensure a secure, scalable, and well-governed cloud environment, GCP provide the concept of cloud foundations or landing zone, which is a very comprehensive approach, and which you're going to establish a solid foundation for your cloud deployment. So foundation or landing zone is not a standard framework for all the organization. It varies from business to business, and it has a very huge cost. You can also go for some of the partners who are going to help you to set up your target environment with a cloud landing zone, and sometimes it's very costly when you go with the partners help. There are many toolkits available that you can use to build your landing zone. Terraform is the way. I mean, Google Cloud provides a modular Terraform modules that you can use to build your landing zone, and you need a highly skilled professionals that knows how to set up these things and how to use Terraform modules to automate this entire landing zone readiness, right? So there is a Google also provides a blueprint of fast, and it also has a which is, I think, is going to be not going to deprecate, but it's I mean, Google has launched this fast fabric way that can accelerate your landing zone preparation. Let me show you here, if I can show you. One second. Fast fabric landing zone. Well, this video I'm not gonna deep dive um, into the landing zone, but let me show you so that you have a better understanding. This is the Fabric Cloud Foundation Fabric Terraform modules, and here there is a directory called Fast, and this is the new way we can use the Fabric Fast to set up your GCP organizations and all this. Basically the component of your landing zone. It's a very nicely explained step by step, from bootstrapping, from creating the organization, bootstrapping, resource management, networking and security, and your functional requirements. It's pretty easy. I'll highly recommend that you should go through this and start automating your landing zone. And also let me show you how landing zone looks like. So this is the basic landing zone, wherein if you see here, you have an organization, and under organization, what you're going to do, you create your directory or hierarchy, like, and then you create a subdirectory, and under subdirectory you have a project, and then you have basically this particular landing zone design is based on hub and spoke model, if I talk in terms of networking. And then our hub project is going to be interconnect with your on-prem network, and this is the overall landing zone design looks like. So that's why Google Cloud Readiness is very important before you actually migrate it. So what's covered under landing zone? Basically, you have IAM, you have a resource management, you have a networking, you have a data management, infrastructure as a code, logging, monitoring, and then you have a security foundations and GKE foundations. So everything, these are the items that basically covers when you create the landing zones, right? Now, this so we have talked about much more on about the readiness of a Google Cloud, and this is very important because it's gonna take a lot of time when you create a landing zone or create a foundation, because here you actually start doing technical things, and your people have start getting their accesses, and your people also getting educated or upskills their level onto the cloud, right? So this part is very important because if your target environment is any loopholes, migration will can go fail, or you can be compromised with some security threats. So this is very important. Now coming back to your on-prem planning, on-prem planning is something that you gonna basically evaluate, and going through all your application stack and finding the dependencies and deciding which application that you want to move first. So as we have seen, assessment, discovery. So the discovery phase, and in the assessment phase, this is not just a one time activity, it has to be continuous run, right? It has to be run continuously so that you can be getting a feedback continuously, getting a lot of data and dependencies, and you take a valuable decisions here, right? So the very first thing that comes here in the on-prem planning is the migration concept, or let me talk about this migration concept. So um, in the planning phase also, you basically create a cloud migration project, which basically represent the entire process that your organizations follow to mitigate the application to the Google Cloud. So if you are already working in in a cloud migration project, you must have seen that there is a lot of process, right? A lot of stakeholders that gets work together. And if any of your team member or department has direct or indirect um, relations, or or has any relation to the cloud migration application, they are actually a part of your cloud migration projects, right? So each cloud migration project is divided into the waves. We call it wave one, wave two, right? I'll talk about wave one, wave two more in detail. But what exactly is wave is basically a group of application that shares the common interdependencies, which you have identified by the workload discovery and assessment phase, right? We have already seen that in our previous video. And then um, when we think about evaluation of your application, so standalone application and database are typically the good candidates for your first migration wave, because they have their low external dependencies. On the other hand, application with having a very complex dependencies, and that constitutes a complex migration wave, and that require very additional plannings. So you're gonna make sure that you put those application in the waves which has very low dependencies and which can be easily migrate and has a low business impact. Now application within a migration wave are divided into the move groups, right? And uh, and these move groups are basically migrated to the Google Cloud in a sprint. A move group is a group of infrastructure resource and the workloads that you need to migrate together, and these resource and workloads can be a part of same application or a group of application. Okay, so I'll give you a very simple example. Let's say um, you have an application called, let's say, a payroll application, and you want to move group can be like a, you want to move this particular payroll application into a different moves, right? Because this is a big application and you don't want to move everything in just one go. So you're gonna divide this, like a pod, and you're gonna group together in a move group one, and you're gonna move some of the like 20% of these workloads, dependencies and everything in a move group one, maybe in phase one, and the other groups in a move group two, and so on and so forth, right? So this is how you're going to decide which move group one to move first. So this is how you basically categorize your migration um, waves, right? Now there is another thing which we call it migration risk assessment. Now migration risk assessment is basically you need to run a migration risk assessment in parallel with the discovery and assessment, right? The aim is here to identify and measure the workload specific risk associated with the migration, and to start the appropriate migration actions. So this is a diagram. Here you can see that you have a um, discovery and assessment that is continuously running and giving you the feedback. And here if you see, you have a directional risk assessment and mitigations, and then you have a workload specific risk assessment and mitigation. So in a larger transformation programs, organization confront a number of factors that might pose a various degree of risk during and after the cloud migration, and it is therefore essential that you continuously collect data to identify these risks and take the mitigations. And this creates the need of migration risk assessments uh, as a part of work stream, or as a part of your program governance for cloud transformation. Usually A high level discovery and assessment efforts produce directional recommendations, and mitigations, right? So as soon as you start your migration web planning, it is critical that you run the discovery and assessment efforts continuously, and continuous discovery produce additional workload specific data, and allows you to refine the scope and prioritize of your migration waves. So this is important, right? You're gonna move, as I said, right, you're gonna move wave one, wave two, wave three, and wave one, right? All this is a part of your migration risk assessment. You continuously getting the feedback from your discovery and assessment. Such a typical migration risk, which I'm gonna talk about, is the first is technical blockers, right? um, there are factors that prevent the migration of a specific workload, um, right? And maybe there is another risk of regulatory requirements and constant, right? A certain compliances that is not that you cannot fulfill, onto your cloud. So those type of requirement for data protection and privacy, including the data localizations, right? So there are possible mitigation strategies are there, which I'm not going to deep dive into it, because there is a if you just go through the document of your cloud migration center, it's very detailed. Risks are mentioned there, and their possible mitigation strategies are there, right? So now there is one more thing which I'm going to talk about, is plan your migration wave or create an application catalog. So basically, you should organize your application into categories based on the application architecture and business considerations and the IT operations. So these three factors are involved when you basically create an application catalog, right? And this helps you prioritize them in according to their business criticality, complexity, or whatever is involved in moving to the cloud, right? So these are the three category. And under application architecture, you'll see that following these are the factors of your application architecture catalog, like technical constraint, number of dependencies, stateful versus stateless, performance requirement, geographic dependencies, right? All this uh, dependency you're going to put into the application architecture, right? And then in the business consideration, you will think about the business point of view. Is there any compliance requirement when you are thinking about these application stacks? Any business criticality that you want to move this application first or later, or maybe in a different phase? um, Business change capability, number of users that are involved, that handles or manage this application, or maybe the external user or the client that are you consuming this particular application, right? Again, the type of user, external or internal, and total cost of ownership, how much is it going to cost when you move this particular application stack. And then you think about the IT operations. Basically in the IT operations, how much it is going to be, how we are going to operate those environment, when you want to move this, so all this operating environment, service level agreement, what is the service level agreement right now, and what with the service level agreement when you move into the cloud. What is the availability of your application as of now, and how you're taking the backup of your application, and how you're going to make it onto the cloud. So once you have this create application catalog in place, then you're going to map, and then you're going to give a priority, right? From the application catalog, map out your application based on the complexity and target migration approach. So, and then rank your migration candidate in order of priority. So here let's talk about map and priorities. This is the application complexity and the mapping your priority application. So basically you rank your migration candidate in order of priority and based on the business value and the efforts that is required to migrate. So to this, you have to identify your application with the features that make them likely to be moved first. You can pick just one or include multiple application in your first wave. The app in the first wave basically lets your team test the deployment in the cloud environment, and while you can focus on the migration instead of the complexity of the application. So you must start with a standalone app, which basically lower the initial risk, because later you can apply your team's knowledge to applications that are more complex and have many dependencies. So applications in the first wave typically are not the business critical and have fewer system and network to network dependencies, and they are also require less refactoring and usually have a less data and don't have a specific compliance or challenges, right? And you can do easily cut over and after the migration is done, right? um, and so these are the I mean, you can see here, right? You have a total number of application which are in the scope, and application in scope after excluding those categorized for retiring. So here you can just simply map out those applications. Now, grouping of application in waves. So once you have mapped out your priorities application in the mapping and priority section, here you have to grouping your application in the waves. So what happened that grouping application into multiple waves, as I talked about what are the wave, and wave has multiple moves group. So there are different types of wave that you should follow the order. In the wave one, here you have a high business value and low effort to implement, and these applications basically are ideal candidates for early migration and the proof of concept, right? So yeah, of course, right? So if you have any application which has a very high business value, and it also has a low effort to implement, the obviously you have to move this application to cloud, so that this particular application can get the power of computing and can scale up to infinity. And you can do a lot of innovation, your developers can do a lot more innovation to bring this application on the top notch, right? And in the wave two, you might go for high business value and high effort to implement, and these application maybe you can prioritize next, and then you can go for low business value and low effort to implement, and then you can go for finally you can go for low business value and high effort to implement. So in this way, one thing is common here, that the efforts, right? So you should go with the lower effort to the higher effort. So it basically, you'll start with the lower effort, you'll get more confidence, then you go to the next step, you get more confidence, and then once you have experience of migrating multiple application or wave, and then you are now fully confident that you can move the complex application which needs higher effort to implement, and those applications should be in the last, right? And then after you have defined your migration waves, you can organize them in a project plan. So obviously you're going to run cloud run, sorry, not cloud run, that's called what we call it run book, right? So you can, you're going to use this run book, and you can plan it in some chart, or in a way that you're going to decide how much time you're going to take to move these applications from wave 1 to wave 4 to wave n. So these are the um, these are the steps that should be a part of your plan. But again, I'm saying planning is not I mean, planning covers a lot of things apart for what we have discussed today, depending on business to business. And planning has to be perfect, otherwise your migration can go fail. So make sure, before you actually start migrating things, which we're going to discuss in our next video, where I'm going to um, show you or give you the show you the demo where we will live migrate one of some of the instance from our AWS to our Google Cloud. You can imagine that your AWS cloud is your on-premises environment. We will set up some of the um, basic migration tools like compute for migrations, database migration, some of the tool that we will use to show you how you can migrate using those tools. But if you are using any other strategy of migrating, maybe you're gonna if you are going for with the lift and shift strategies, you can go with the blue green deployment, and you might not need the tools. It's not like that you always need to go with the native tool. You can go with the third party tool as well. So in next video I'll show you the actual migrations, and we will cover some of the tools that help you to migrate your workloads. All right, so see you in next video. Thank you.